Welcome back to the Flight Path podcast, everybody. We have an incredible show for you today where we are going to be covering a bunch of updates to the Tern product, including some small wins that you all have been asking for, but a lot bigger updates like an overhaul to how we do pricing, which is going to change and make a huge impact, especially for those of you that are selling cruises during wave season. We're going to talk about the way that you present options to your clients and how that has gotten really slick and had some major updates. And we'll be talking about a overhaul to the way that your clients sign up for Tern, really rethinking the kind of entire account process and how that is going wide very soon. So we have an incredible show for you today. We're going to have an incredible series for you in 2025. We have some really big things planned. So if this is your first time listening to Flight Path, or maybe you've kind of been an occasional listener, we really do want to make sure that you have all the updates that we're working on. And the best way to get notified about that is to subscribe, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe. That way you can always up to date on the things that are happening with Tern. And if you really want to be up to date, make sure you turn on notifications so that when these go live on Friday afternoons, you are the first to know, and you will be a Tern expert in no time. There's lots of nuggets in the Flight Path podcast that are really going to help you supercharge your business with the Tern platform. Just so you know who your hosts are for this episode and for most episodes, my name is David Shull, CEO and co-founder, joined by Brad Turner, head of design, and Jade, who is filling in for Molly as our head of product. Molly is out on maternity leave, just had a beautiful little baby, and just kind of celebrating the growth of the family. And so, Jade, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks. It's exciting to be here.
And this is the first podcast of 2025. And as frequent listeners will notice that we're making some changes. We're getting rid of the minute and a half long intro video. We're just going live right away. And because it's the first pod of 2025, we've got to spend a little bit of talking about the break. Brad, how was your break? We'll come to you first. I want to hear, Jade, how your break was. But how are things?
Things are great. I honestly didn't know what to do with myself for a little bit of our break. We had, for folks listening, we had like time away from our standard work because we were like at a retreat together, and then we had like a week and a half almost in addition off where we weren't actively online, and I was at my parents' house for a majority of that time, and so it was nice to like get to spend some time with them, spend some time with the family. Towards the end, I was like, I'm ready to go back to my routine, to drink the coffee that I like, to wake up in my own bed. So generally good, excited to be back, but like still ramping back up into the like, oh, what do we do on a daily basis? Like, how does this work? So pretty good.
I resonate with the coffee thing a lot. Like, we found this coffee that my wife and I just like love, and when we go to my in-laws, they don't have that coffee, and it's just like, I don't know, I just miss that, right? It's just those little things. Okay, I have to ask before we go to Jade, what did your parents think of the shirts, the Flight Path shirts?
Oh, they thought it was hilarious. They've enjoyed being podcast celebrities on the side for a while now. And I think I might have shared this before, but when I was home this time, my dad started taping the light switch of our basement so that he didn't accidentally turn the lights off on me when I was in meetings and recording. So they're caring podcast parents who want to make sure we do this right.
They've taken the feedback and you really embraced the role as kind of behind the scenes podcast celebs. I love that. Jade, how was your break?
Yeah, I also resonate with the coffee comments. My parents stopped drinking coffee actually, so they have I'm always having to prepare to be home and like make sure that they've ordered coffee. They still do have a coffee maker, so it's possible, but it takes some planning.
Wow. Did they switch to tea, or what happened?
Yeah, they switched to tea. They're mostly like no caffeine, so some tea. Yep. But the break was great. It was awesome to spend time with the Tern team in person. Got to make sure to get all the information from Molly before she left. So hopefully we can do her proud while she's out. But then I was also with my parents who are in Michigan as well. And it was great to hang out with them. I have a cat in San Francisco, so we brought my cat home, and my parents also have a cat. So we had too much fun watching the two cats get to know each other. And I think they got along great.
I have so many questions about flying with the cat and how that went, but we'll save that for maybe a future episode. Yeah, similar story all around. Spent a lot of time up. My wife and I are from the same hometown, visiting my in-laws and my parents, and like it was really fun. But like a lot of back and forth and doing kind of all the holiday festivities, which was really fun. But somehow like also got sick as a part of that. I don't know what it was. Like my nephews, I think, were maybe a little sick when they showed up, and then we went to this like public pool, and some combination of things led to illness. So second half of break was just kind of like recovering and trying to take it easy, and like just feeling a little bit of the we need to get moving again, like seeing in the Facebook group all the people asking questions, and usually the remedy to that anxiety is like we're shipping improvements and features every single day. But with the offsite and then almost a week and a half off, it's like it's been therapeutic watching things move again this week, and maybe that's a good transition into what's been happening, because we have things to update on from the week before. We have things to talk about that happened this week, and I'm going to kick off with a couple of the quick wins and then hand it over to Brad and Jade to talk about some of the big things that have shipped. But as we've kind of talked about before on the show, one of the things we try and do at Tern is we want to make sure that we're shipping kind of smaller things that are addressing like user feedback every week, while also working on some of these bigger things. And these bigger things could be improving existing functionality, as we'll talk about with the kind of pricing overhaul, and the account creation. But it also could be new features, right, which we'll talk about with the options. And a lot of the kind of small wins this week were focused on that. One thing we did actually right before break that was sort of like stealthily released was give people the ability to download their entire contact library. We heard a lot of people wanted to send Christmas cards or holiday greetings or whatever it may be to their contact list. And so now if you go to contacts, there's that little kind of 3-button icon. Brad, is there a good name for that icon? I call it like the hamburger icon, but it's sort of flipped. I don't like we just call it 3 buttons.
Say there's a more menu, and so
more menu.
Yeah. You can figure out, that means there's more options here with 3 little dots.
Okay, 3 little dots. We're calling that the more menu from now on. So the more menu has the ability to export all of your contacts. It's like a fairly basic export right now. We'll continue to add to that over time, but it's a great way if you need to send a mass email from another system or anything like that. You can export those contacts with some of the key data. So that's a quick win, and a lot of support requests were coming in about that. We also did a kind of quality of life thing. There was this really frustrating experience where if you added a flight, say, for example, a return flight, and it was on the last day of the trip, but it was an overnight, right? So maybe they're leaving, I don't know, Asia. I'm trying to figure out the time zones. Maybe they're leaving Hawaii, and it's the end of the trip. They're flying to the East Coast. They're actually going to land at like 6 a.m. the next day. And so historically, if you added that flight, it would just not let you, because it'd say the trip date, end date, doesn't match, and it's kind of this confusing error. And now we've updated it so that it's smart enough to see when that flight crosses over the date thing, and will automatically suggest extending the trip by 1 day to make sure everything works. So saving a lot of that kind of like friction every time you're adding one of those flights. Continue with the kind of quicker, smaller wins. We've added some more currencies. So EGP and SAR are now live in the system. And again, like keep kind of feedback coming if there are currencies that we're missing, but those now both support being activity and trip level currencies, as well as kind of the conversion. So excited about that. One of the other things that we've done is a little bit of a technical behind the scenes thing, but we generally email confirmations and texts would go very quickly from Tern, but every once in a while, if there were a lot of different kind of things being processed, they could get delayed. And so we saw not a ton, but maybe 3 or 4 people reach out to support and say, hey, I've been waiting for this kind of confirmation email for a couple minutes. What's going on? And so the engineering team was able to make a kind of change that prioritizes those. So those should always be going out, more or less instantly. So pretty excited about that. And I think those are the big or I guess not the little kind of quick wins. Anything, Jade, Brad, you want to add to that before, Brad, I turn it over to you to talk about one of the most requested updates, I think, since the webinar in December, certainly, and just a general major improvement. But any other things on the quick wins?
I don't remember if you talked about this in the podcast last week, but I think pretty cool that a lot of these small wins actually came up because of the time we spent together as a team on the offsite, talking about some of the major, challenges and some of these, smaller things, but some of the challenges that we were seeing as a team, and, the engineers feeling really motivated and like inspired to fix some of those. So
yeah, having it, and it's really been fun. There's also like some tooling that was built behind the scenes. Like we, Spencer, one of our engineers, kind of saw what we would have to do. Anytime somebody reached out to us to say like, I'm not getting my emails, it's like, okay, well, like, did you check these things? And we're going into these different tools and trying to find it, and it didn't include all the information. And so, yeah, so I just like built this admin portal so that we can just see all the common issues with emails, right? And like, so yeah, that idea of having the whole company do support really led to some of these pieces. It's really, really good call out. All right, Brad, I'm going to turn it over to you. Talk to the people about what they've probably been waiting for since the intro. And the Facebook detectives found this, I think, hours ago. I saw it popping up there. So what's happening with pricing?
Yeah, and we should say, hopefully people aren't freaking out that we've said multiple times we're overhauling pricing, because that does not mean that we're changing the price you pay for Tern right today. Like, that's not what we're overhauling. We're overhauling your ability to like put in the prices that your clients are paying for things on their trip. And by overhaul, what we mean is we're adding more flexibility and functionality there. We've heard for a very long time that pricing cruises, especially per night on lodging, makes 0 sense. If you want to be like, here are your room options and here's the price per night, they're like, what do you mean price per night? I'm on this cruise. I don't have a choice of how many nights I'm here for. Like, that's not how this works. And so we've heard that feedback. And now, thankfully, we've introduced an option for you to toggle between per night and just total pricing. And that exists primarily for lodging and mostly for cruises, but we know like some all-inclusives function that way as well. And then it is available on other activity types. So if for some reason you had maybe like a rental car could be a good example that like the price is per night or something, it's there. If you don't need to use it, you don't have to worry about it. It's not like you have to pick something every time. It'll default to total, but generally we're trying to provide more flexibility so that however you're getting your quotes from suppliers about what the price is, you can reflect that in Tern. So again, like this is a good step in that direction. If more things come up, you're like, oh, I need this other rate or other option, let us know. Like, always happy to continue to make improvements there. But yeah, this has been like on the group's webinar, we're like, look at how cool room options are. And people are like, yeah, cool story, but like, dear God, please make it not per night. So we heard you. It took us a little while to get there. There's a lot of places where we show the price of an activity and use that price to calculate a price for a package or like the total cost of the trip. And so we had to touch like a lot of pieces of the code. We also had to kind of like backfill every record we've had in the database for a trip. And that like process of basically telling the database, hey, we need to update all this, took like 12 hours. So if you can imagine how long, like how many things we had to update, just the process of like the computer doing it took quite a long time. So we finally got there. It's out as of this morning, and we can share a little demo, but anything, Jade or David, to add before we do that?
I mean, maybe while you're pulling up the demo, the one thing I'll add is, Brad talks about how many different places, like it is, anytime you do complex, like pricing, it is so much more complex than people understand. And Brad will really talk about this when we do the demo, but like every card has like a little price summary. And now we're introducing different pricing mechanisms. You think about every time we do the math to show like what the price is, you think about the difference between pricing on a landing page where somebody's signing up versus like what it actually looks like when you're just defining it on a cruise. It is one of those projects, I think it's the definitional project of like, well, it just seems easy. Like, just let me say it's per night, right? And yeah, it sounds easy, but then there's probably 100 different things that are implicated then or that change, credit card authorization, the UI. Like, it is incredible how every time we touch pricing, it just balloons into this like web of complexity, which is, we figured it out and it works. And like, we'll continue to make our pricing engine more and more sophisticated for you. But look behind the scenes there.
Yeah, I can confirm that testing this was pretty intense with all the different combinations and the way that showed to the user, making sure that it's really clear actually what price they're seeing and what's being calculated. So, and I feel very lucky to have this be the first feature that I announced because it's so exciting, but definitely a lot to it. And Brad and I were bummed yesterday because we were ready to release it. We had tested everything finally. And then we learned, that we had to run the backfill and that was going to take a while. So this morning we were, again, super excited to get it out.
12-hour migration, which has got to be the longest migration we've had by like an order of magnitude, right? I don't think we've come even close to that. Like,
yeah, I messaged Jade and was like, for what it's worth, most product launches don't require this 12-hour delay. Sorry, this is your first one. Yeah, hopefully that won't be a thing we run into more in the future. All right, so for a quick demo here, I'm sharing my screen to show the trip board in Tern today, and I'll just quickly show you when you drag, you could open a current activity, or if I like try to add a lodging item to this trip, and I toggle over to the booking and pricing tab over here. Now, in addition to having the different rate options of flat rate, per room, or per person, you can also toggle between a total price or a per night price. And so likely how most folks will end up using this is when they add room options, like say you want to sell both a like luxury suite option and a, just turn this into options quick, luxury suite and like a standard suite. When you do that, on the booking and pricing tab, if you select per room, now you can just put in the total price for that luxury suite, and you could put in a total price for the standard suite, and we'll automatically show you like what the starting rate is, and then your clients, well, I'll show that too, but no more, you can see here, no more per night. You could toggle the per night if you want to, but by default, we just do total. And then
Brad, before you click off on that, I just want to like highlight one example of the complexity here, right? Because this was super small and most people probably didn't catch it. But as Brad's kind of looking at the pricing tab here, he entered in $1,000 for a luxury suite and then added the standard suite at $800. And the activity language at the bottom updated to say it's now starting at $800, right? Which means like we have to look at the fact that this is now totally like a total pricing. We're not factoring in the number of days. We have to look at which one of these is higher. And then we have to figure out that this is like a choice because Brad set the rooms to be an option. And so we should say that it's starting at $800. Like that language all had to be programmed, right? The logic to figure out like what should we put there and in the 100 other places that we show that. So just wanted to call that out in the demo.
Yeah, and then all the places here too where we're like showing cost for you, the advisor, to show you how much the overall cost of the trip is. And then also on the client experience, they see here starting at $800. When they go to select rooms, they'll see the total price for each of those, which is not per night anymore because you didn't set it as per night. So again, I was going to say the tentacles go out across the product, all the places that you have this today. So really excited that that's live, and people seem hype about it already in the Facebook group before we even got to share that it was live. So yeah, let us know if anything comes up that either looks off because maybe we missed one of those 1 million places, flag it and we'll fix it. And then if there's more different types of rates and things, always let us know and we can prioritize those changes as well.
So cool to have that out there. And like, especially like right as wave season's really ramping up, like being able to do cruises, thinking about group cruises, like how much easier this makes it. Now I can do the math, lower surface area for risk, like huge shout out to the entire team. And I think it was on the engineering side, everybody played a role. I think it was Brian and James that led a lot of that kind of pricing work. So shout out to them. Really cool to see that come to life.
And yeah, there's a lot of workarounds I think that advisors had implemented to make this work, like a per room total price. So it's great that we can reduce some of those workarounds.
Yeah. Worth workarounds, right? Like, let's just make it work.
Yeah.
Speaking of making things work better, maybe transitioning over to another pretty significant update, which launched, I think, right before break, but we did not actually have time to talk about it, which is a dramatically better client experience for option blocks and some improvements on how that works with groups. Jade, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. As a part of the self-service sign-up flow that we talked about when we released groups, we've made sure that clients can actually select the options that you've presented to them as a part of the sign-up flow. So although this fits into that group sign-up flow, this actually works for regular trip itineraries too. So as you share those itineraries, clients can select the options that you're presenting them with. I'll show an example here, but we were just talking about a really good use case before we started. That is, presenting a client with multiple hotel options, letting them select that option immediately, and then selecting the room options you have within those hotel options. So great ways to make sure that your clients can give you the preferences that they have in a really seamless end-to-end flow. Brad, is there anything you would add there about option block selection before I show?
I don't think so. You covered it all. I would just say we definitely got feedback before about this kind of being annoying, that it felt different than making other types of selections. And so we're in like kind of the flow for picking insurance, stuff like that. So really excited to be bringing that together into one combined experience.
Yeah, it was a bit hidden, right? Like you had to scroll down. It wasn't clear that there was maybe a selection needed.
Exactly.
It's like you got this like 14-day European FIT. On day 7, you're going to a different, it's like, here are 2 different hotels, but like as a client, you click authorize payments and you just get an error. You're like, you have to select all the choices before you can like move on, right?
No, you don't get an error. That sounds way worse than it was. There was no
Not
error.
an error, but it was like you have to like, it wasn't an error, but it was like a notification, like you have to make like the selections, right? And then you had to like scroll all the way down, make the selections as a user, like go back up, authorize. Now it's so much better. So Jade, maybe show us what it looks like now.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, so yeah, just to give you a sense, on the itinerary here, have multiple short excursions set up, and we'll take a look at then what this looks like. This is just a regular trip in this case, so we'll see what this looks like from the client experience as they're reviewing this itinerary. Let's go ahead and preview this. So your clients are going to now see select preferences as an action to take as a part of this itinerary. When we click on that, you'll see those options here now to select. You can view the details of these options that you've created, select them. You can even edit as a part. So, as the client is deciding here, you can go back, make an edit, and then submit these selections. Of course, I'm just previewing here, so we won't actually go through and submit these. But after this, the client will be prompted to make any room option selections and then any credit card authorizations.
Yeah, and we should say in this demo, we're not showing like pricing or images, but all the things that exist on the itinerary today would also show up if you set those fields on the activities.
Yep.
And Jade, you mentioned this to start with, right? But like just to emphasize, one of the really cool flows that this combined with the room options enables that was really pretty hard to do before is you could present your clients with, instead of snorkeling, scuba diving, this could be 3 different hotels. Mm-hmm. They could select an option. And just like Jade said, now you have like 2 or 3 different rooms that they can choose from. They can select that. And then based on that, Tern's automatically, tying this into the pricing conversation, figuring out based on the room that they selected, based on the hotel they selected, how much should they authorize, so that they can then enter their credit card details. And like this whole idea of the online checkout just gets better and better. And now they have one flow, they've authorized that payment, and you're good to go. And like, if you think about the back and forth that has cut out, it is huge in terms of time savings. You could do this with multiple, you could do it with cabins. Like there's so many different kind of really cool things. Thinking about wave season, you could have 3 itineraries. They could then, with 3 different cruises, each cruise has different cabin options. Like they select approve this itinerary, then they go through, they select their cabin options, and now they're authorizing the payment in one flow. And again, we're all about how do we help empower efficiency for you as an advisor so you can like sell more, so that you can reclaim your time, you can delight your clients. And like this set of features coming together, I think does that in a really, really cool way. Exciting. And we're not done. We have another big update that people have been asking for since like credit card authorization launched. And I'll kind of teeing up as like, we've always gotten this pushback on like, my clients don't have to create an account. My clients don't have to create an account. And really, when we dug into that, it was like, I don't want my clients to have this like friction associated with actually doing something that they need to do to move this trip forward. And there's quite a bit of friction in the kind of experience, if we're being honest. So like, Brad, do you want to talk about kind of what that experience maybe used to look like, and now as of sometime today, how that will start to change?
Yeah, for sure. And so as David mentioned, like we talk about this as friction. And so, well, actually, before we talk about, I want to talk about why like you still need an account and like why we even do this in the first place. Think about like what you're asking your clients to do. If the itinerary is interactive, and you're like, hey, I want you to interact with this itinerary as yourself. Like I want to know that my client made these decisions, we have to have some way to know that like it's actually your client who's making these choices instead of somebody they forwarded the link to or one of their friends who they shared their itinerary with who's just clicking around. And so it is important to like verify, hey, if you're saying these are the rooms I want, or if I'm approving an itinerary, especially if I'm providing credit card authorization with an e-signature, that we're able to say like, okay, this is really you. We know that. So that's good. And so we're still making sure that we know who's interacting with the itinerary. But instead of this big wall of text explaining like, you need to create an account in order to do this, and then getting sent to a create account page and then going to verify your email, like it's like step. It's like, okay, wait, let's just bring this back to like what we actually need to know. And maybe I can actually just show this in addition to talking over it. If we'll do a little live demo. And I'm hoping that my test environment is still set up, but we're going to find out together.
We'll do it live.
So yeah, the new experience will be like this. Your clients will have, if you send them their itinerary, I'm like, cool, I want to go choose my rooms. Instead of being told this big wall of text, it's just like, hey, put in your email address. And I can go ahead and do that here. That I'll put in my email, and then we'll send them just a quick code to their email so we can confirm they are who they say they are. So I'm going to copy this from another window just in here.
While you're pulling that up, this also impacts, like one of the things we talked about was sending that email faster. Like this guarantees that email should be there like basically immediately.
Yeah, and I'm logged in. Like it happened before you even finished saying that, and so like that's how fast it is. If they haven't previously logged in on Tern, we do ask them to confirm their first and last name, and just like that, there's a line that makes sure they know what they're agreeing to, like our terms of service by engaging with the platform. But again, like copy and paste a code from your email that we just sent you, put in your name, and you're good to go. Like you don't need to be setting a password, writing your password down. Shouldn't do that, but like however people do this today, just put in your email. We'll send you a code, and you're off to the races. If you already have a Tern account and you want to use a password, you can still do that. I guess I can just quickly show here. If I go to choose rooms and I'm logged out, still sign in with Google, and you could still use your Tern password. So there's a path for that as well.
And I think what's really cool about this is when we got this like feedback, exactly like Brett said, the pushback, people said, oh, we don't want to have an account. But really, as we dug into that, it was like, we don't want to make it hard for our clients to do this. And so we think we've really found the best of both worlds here. We get the benefit of having an account and all the things that we can kind of build on top of that. We talked in the last podcast of the year that we really want to kind of move in this direction of having more of a client portal where they can keep all their preferences and passport and those types of things securely up to date. That sort of requires this kind of account architecture. Like Brad said, from your kind of peace of mind and knowing that the people who are making decisions are your actual clients and not anybody who found this link, accounts required. Like the account has a lot of benefits, but those benefits are sort of undermined if it's too hard. And I think, there was a lot of steps like Brad said before. So having this like super easy, just type in 4-6 numbers and we can authenticate you without compromising the security, I think is going to be a huge, huge leap forward. So huge props to the teams on that. Anytime you're dealing with this from a security perspective, there's like all these things that you have to kind of do behind the scenes that aren't talked about, right? From like a threat management perspective. So, one of the examples is, there's a threat vector that you could have here where, there's a finite number of combinations that you can have with 6 numbers, right? So if you could actually just like brute force putting numbers in there within a certain amount of time, like you could potentially break in. So we have the build in the logic and the security behind the scenes to make sure that we're rate limiting so that you like can't do that, right? And so this is again one of those features that's like, this looks really simple, this looks really clean, it must have been easy, but like to actually make this secure and fast and like find the magic of this is really easy without compromising security took a ton of work behind the scenes. So huge shout out to everybody who kind of made that happen and made this possible, because it's really cool. And we're going to be a little bit cautious about the rollout here. Brad, do you want to talk about how that's a little bit different for this release?
Yeah, and Jade, feel free to jump in too. It's funny, we're doing this kind of the first time without Molly here. We're like, oh, we haven't really rolled things out exactly the way we're going to do it now. So we're basically the way that this is going to happen over the next, we hope, like week. We'll slowly be adding this experience to more advisors' trips. So we'll start with like maybe 10 to 20% of advisors. Their clients, when they go to log in on their trips, they'll see this new experience. And then as long as we're not seeing any like negative feedback or errors where people are getting stuck, we're not expecting any, but it's like, hey, this is a core part of the client experience. If they can't log in, they can't really do anything else. So I'm going to be like extra cautious, and we'll roll that out more over time. We'll start with like a smaller amount. We'll slowly add it to a larger percentage. We're not like hand picking which advisors. And so it's possible that like you're on the old version or you're on the new version. That should only be like a week or so. But yeah, if your clients have any issues at all, please reach out as soon as possible and we'll make sure we resolve it. And we can always, I think, manually remove individual advisors from that rollout too, to make sure like if you're having issues, we can unblock you as fast as possible.
Yeah. I also feel really lucky that this is, in the first set of features that I get to be a part of releasing. But yeah, definitely some complexity here to the rollout. But it does, Brad and I were talking about the rollout before this, and the experience feels really smooth and really clean. So I think it's going to be great.
The one other thing we should note is that mobile will be on a slightly separate timeline. It's possible we have to do more like App Store reviews and things. So that'll just be handled differently than the web experience.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of summarizing all of that, safe to say, hopefully today, some percentage, probably small to start with, we'll start to see this functionality. But like fast forward, call it 10 to 12 days, assuming there's no surprises, like everybody should have access to this. Again, not expecting any surprises, but like anytime you're touching something that's this sensitive, this core to the experience, better to be safe than sorry. Do you think that's like a fair summary?
I think so. Great. We'll also share a resource on the experience that explains that some percent of travelers will see this and others won't. So we'll share that in the Facebook group after this.
Perfect. And it'll be in the help center for folks who want to find it.
Mm-hmm.
We're back. It feels so good to be like this, just checking these things off the list. And we've got a lot of other kind of irons in the fire. And it's like, it's just fun. There's a little bit of this kind of like post-break fog where it's like, what is this? Like Brad said, but like, it's really cool. Teams like, I've sort of gotten into the Lions, like a bit of a fair weather fan here in Detroit. And like, we're super stoked because we got our bye week. So we can kind of like recharge, reset, heal. And I feel like, so we can come back even better for the second round of the playoffs. Brad's laughing because he's seen my evolution of like not caring at all about sports. And now I'm talking about sports on a podcast. So I'm a whole new person now, but I feel like that's what happened with our team. We're like crazy good 2024, but like people are tired by the end of the year, right? I mean, we put our all into building this business for all of you. And so we got to the point where hopefully people are restored and then sort of getting restless by the end of the break. And now we're ready to hit 2025 and make it even better than 2024. So another plug, a lot of cool things coming. This podcast, I think, is actually the best way to get all of the inside tips, knowledge, what we're building, the thought process behind it. So subscribe. If you have questions, put in the comments. We do look at all those and turn those notifications on. Let's wrap up with week ahead.
Oh, Brad. Two things, David. One, can you name a Lions player?
Aiden Hutchinson.
Love it. Okay, you're a real fan. Okay,
and then a local Lions player.
I know, literally, he's from my same town. So like, there's like trees and everything like that. Yeah. So Anzalone. I don't remember his first name. I should, but I got it. I'm like a real fan, Brad. Now.
All right. And then Ellen would really be disappointed if we didn't plug the other way you can now stay updated on Tern things, which is an Instagram account. Handle is just Tern Software. I think the plan will probably I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Ellen. Be cool if we cut some pieces from the podcast, threw them up there for socials. People can, if you don't have time to listen to the whole thing, get some of the highlights. Like, stay tuned there as well. I think we'll for sure announce like when there's new podcast episodes there, so you don't miss them. Also,
yes, we are. Ellen's done an awesome job, kind of like in addition to all the support stuff she's doing, starting to try and figure out like how can we have more of a social presence. Like I think we're pretty good with the Facebook group, but like there's a lot more that we can do to kind of tell the story of everything that Tern's doing. All right, let's wrap up. First podcast of the year in the books, almost. But like, what do we got going on next week? Jade, you want to start?
Yeah. So next week, I'll still be just learning all things Molly and making sure that we can keep like the product process on the rails. But then we'll be thinking about optional add-ons, really testing that experience. So making sure that you can present clients with optional add-ons in addition to those option blocks, things that are truly optional as a part of the itinerary. So we'll hopefully be testing that next week, testing some adjustments and bonuses work on the agency side of things, and then preparing for some work coming up in the next few weeks on more commission rules on the agency side. So really digging into some of the details there with Brad.
Brad, what's your week look like? Is it similar?
That's what Jade said. It's so funny to think about next week because Jade and I were like planning out. We were like in a meeting yesterday planning what was next week, and we like spent 5 minutes talking about what we needed to do this week. And we're like, oh wait, we're a week behind. Like we got so many things going on.
Right.
Maybe one additional thing, in addition to everything Jade mentioned, we're also starting to plan out, inventory management as a project, and so that is for group travel, anywhere that you have a limited set of inventory, whether that's like rooms or cabins that you have, or like specific shore excursions that you want to allow people to sign up for, but only to a certain limit. We're going to be working through the details there and should start some engineering on that in the next couple of weeks.
Love it. I think maybe summarizing kind of how we're thinking about, at least first quarter, it's like, how are we driving, maybe starting with like, how are we actually kind of improving the core product, right? This is something we hear a lot, right? That like there are opportunities to streamline, improve, polish, so that is a body of work. And you see that, right, with improving the pricing, you see that with improving option blocks. Like we are kind of listening, learning, watching, and improving from that vertical. And so we will continue to do that and continue to invest there. The second vertical, right, is like, how do we continue to add net new features that add advisor, agent level kind of functionality, right? So we think about groups. It's like, how do we make inventory management better? How do we really start to think about optional add-ons? You can present these things that people don't have to choose, but they can choose, and really continue to expand the feature set in a way that makes it so that Tern really works for more use cases and more people. And then you have the agency side of things. We've got big plans to really mature that and to continue to make it so that more and more sophisticated agencies with more and more advisors, different use cases, workflows can use the platform. So really driving forward 3 major initiatives. My week is a whole mix of things next week. We've got we're kind of calling it a sales kickoff event. So we're gathering our agency partnerships team in Austin and really going to be kind of digging into what features do we have ahead? How should we be thinking about kind of positioning Tern? What are the kind of success stories that we're already seeing from advisors? It's like spending time together, really making sure that we're all on the same page and kind of running from the same playbook. So I think that'll be really fun. That is kind of Wednesday, Thursday. We'll work from Austin on Friday and actually going to take advantage of a longer weekend to kind of explore that. So if you have Austin tips, put those in the comments. Would love that. The other kind of body of work that we're working on is just like security documentation. So our team does a lot to make sure that Tern is, incredibly secure, that you can trust and protect the data that you kind of put in that system. And we want to make sure that we can tell that story very, very in a compelling way. And one of the best ways to do that is through some of these different certifications. And so we're kind of going through that process. It turns out a lot of these certifications is less around like actually make Tern more secure, and it's more of document all the things that we already do. And so it's going to be a lot of reviewing policies and that type of thing. But hopefully when we get these requests for security reviews, we can just like, here's everything that you need, right? We already do all these things. So excited to tell the story of what we've already been doing there. And then there's always a million other things that kind of come up. So it's a little bit of everything, as it always is, and is one of the reasons we love the startup life. So anything to wrap up with here, Jade, Brad, before we call it the podcast debut of 2025?
This is a long one. We're almost at 40 minutes. This might be a new record.
With no intro. So thank you for listening. Appreciate you all. That if you are listening to this, just know that like we really do value your partnership. We do not take for granted that you are spending 40 minutes with us to learn about Tern and how it can better help your business. Keep the feedback coming. Keep finding features and posting in the Facebook group. We love that. And we will see you next Friday around the same time. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.